Yale University scientists did an analysis and they looked into the budget plan that's being considered by Republican lawmakers, the one that's been moving through the House of Representatives. And they found that it would ultimately transfer wealth from the poorest 40% of Americans to the richest 1%. I know, you're shocked. I'll give you a second to collect yourself. For the first time in history, a Republican budget transfers wealth from regular people to the elites. I know it's crazy, but yes, these researchers found that the proposed budget, it's the one that was supported last month in a vote by the House, would include $4.5 trillion in tax cuts that would largely benefit the wealthy, along with $1.5 trillion in spending cuts, including to benefits for the public, including the poorest. And okay, so you're probably wondering, okay, that's a big meta number. Well, what about me? What happens to me? Do I benefit? Or do I fall behind as a result of this? Well, they've separated out the overall effect of both the changes to the spending and who it affects, and the changes to the taxes and who that benefits based on the quintiles. Okay, so moving from on the left of this chart we're gonna bring up, on the left is the lowest quintile of money, lowest 20%, and then moving up all the way to the top quintile. Not even like the top 1% where it'd be even more bias there. And so if you are in the bottom 20%, or even let's say the bottom 60%, okay, this is not gonna work out well for you, especially the bottom 40%. You are overall losing a significant amount of money, which I would guess you probably don't have to lose. So we can keep that up for a second as a result of this. But if you already have a lot of money, then the changes in the spending that we're talking about don't really affect you at all. You're not using Medicaid, you're not using SNAP or food stamps or anything like that. All you're getting is cuts to your taxes. That's it, and it's being paid for, not even entirely paid for, because bear in mind, this only pays for part of it. The rest of it just goes to the deficit and goes to the national debt, which we will all pay for decades to come. It's being paid for by those with the least getting less for the tax dollars they already pay. And so look, this is inevitable. We were always going to end up doing this clip, the analysis would be done. The only thing I guess that's specific here is now we have the numbers and we know how bad it is. And that the bottom quintile, the second quintile, the middle quintile, there are millions and millions and millions of Trump voters included in that. Obviously, lots of people that weren't too, but they voted for a party that's gonna come in and financially screw them over in a way that we warned them about the entire time from the very beginning, Francesca. Now we just have the specifics. What do you think?
Yeah, and I wanna remind people that the changes to taxes in the bottom quintiles aren't the same kinds of changes to taxes as the richest. Meaning, if you're in the poorest 20%, so making less than $28,000 a year in this country, your taxes are going up by about $800 a year. If you are up until 157, this is a Institute for Economic Policy, I believe. You need to know, everyone's taxes who makes less than about $300,000 a year, it's not like we're just gonna lose the services. Our taxes are going up, okay? And like, let's remember this when the GOP tries to hoodwink everyone again and get you to turn against poor people, get you to turn against the unhoused, get you to turn against a minimum wage worker and say they're not deserving, they're leeching off the system, they're whatever. No. You even, again, let's remember, even if you're making like $200,000, congratulations, that's a good salary. But you have more in common with people making $20,000 than you do with people who are making, like 500, 600, or millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah, and I have to be clear about one additional thing. Everything that you just said is true. Like, can we put up the chart one more time to show how utterly screwed over like a significant percentage of all the people watching this will be? This is how screwed over you're being just from this budget bill. To be super clear, this isn't like the sum total of everything the Republicans and Donald Trump are doing. No, you're way more screwed than this. We're just talking about the budget bill. So like the thing where on that chart, you're like, okay, well, if in the bottom quintile, at least I get 0.1% of a tax cut, that's good. No. This doesn't include the tariffs, buddy. No, you're gonna be paying thousands of dollars more for the things that you already buy because Donald Trump is off like beating his chest and be like, Canada, I'm gonna F you up. We're gonna do a big trade war. Everything you're gonna buy is more expensive, and China and Mexico, all of that in a million different ways. Oh, also because of the trade war, many people included in this are gonna lose their jobs because businesses aren't gonna be able to sell as many products abroad. No, the economic damage is way bigger than just this. We're just talking about this particular budget bill. The damage goes on and on and on. And look, I'm not great with numbers necessarily. I have low numeracy. We found out about that yesterday on the show. But according to the analysis, this sentence to people at Yale makes sense. More than 100% of the net fiscal benefit would accrue to the top quintile. I don't know exactly what that means, but I know that it's not good. I also know that I'm not in the top quintile. And I'm going to guess, no offense, I'm gonna guess that most of you aren't either, because that involves having millions and millions and millions of dollars.
If you are, you're watching this on a really beautiful screen.
Really beautiful screen. And if you are, that's great. Please support the show. We can use it. But anyway, yeah, so look, this is what they do. If you're just joining American politics now, we have a new season, every 4 years or so, and the Republicans get in and they do this exact thing. They transfer trillions of dollars and we get screwed over. We have to pay for it with fewer services. Our taxes don't actually go down. The deficit and the debt inevitably go up. And the Republicans will perversely use that as a justification for them to get back into power later on. After they wreck the economy, after they jack up the national debt, they'll then say, all these damn Democrats aren't good on the economy. You should put us back in charge so we can give trillions more dollars to Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg. But that is actually what they're doing.
That's the bar for me, John, as we see the Democratic Party completely folding like a house of cards and very few leaders emerging, is that any Democrat that is worth their salt should never listen to Republicans ever again. Yes, I said it. That's it. That is the bar. I don't want to hear, I want to put them in the cabinet. I don't want to hear, let's meet them in the middle. Let's exchange ideas. I don't want to hear they're right about the budget and the massive amounts of debt that the country has. I don't want to hear any of that noise, because not only does the right not listen to Democrats when they're in power, but it's also wrong. They're operating on myths. They're operating on a Republican talking point that is not relevant or exists in reality. And so if we are to ever come back from this, not just to restore the services that have been cut, that will be cut, and are being cut, if we're actually to bounce back and live in the 21st century with one another in like a society that functions and supports people, we have to never listen to the right. I'm sorry, like, to me, that's the bar. That is who will get elected. That is who will galvanize people. That is what voters want to hear. They don't want to hear anything else.
Yeah, and again, before we leave, not saying that Democrats are awesome, obviously. But have you been watching the show? Like, do I need to clarify these sorts of things? I don't understand why I would need to, but just in case.